Your Honor, my client does not want to get a divorce and asks the court to schedule a consultation. She feels that the marriage is strong enough to survive this misfortune with some help. That's what her lawyer said. My future ex-wife, Julie's lawyer. My lawyer stood up. Your Honor, a 12-month affair with several men that led to the birth of a child can hardly be called an accident, especially when DNA analysis proves that the child in question does not belong to my client. We believe that there is no benefit in continuing this imitation of marriage any further. The consultation will not change anything. It is because of the child that I am inclined to order a consultation. The judge said, the child needs a stable home to grow up. If you expect me to raise a bastard with this cheating fool, I said loudly. My lawyer grimaced. The judge banged the gavel hard. One more word, and I'll charge you with contempt of court, he shouted at me. I schedule a month of counseling for 2 sessions per week. Otherwise, he glowered at me for a moment, then banged the hammer again. That's all. Julie, my future ex-wife, looked smug when I walked into the consultant's office. I'm Dr. Sullivan, but you can call me. Gerald, may I call you Brian? He smiled at me. No, you can't. You can address me as Mr. Stedman. Brian, that's not necessary. Julie began, and you don't have to contact me at all. I snapped at her. I think we need to calm down. Please, Mr. Stedman, have a seat. He pointed to one of the chairs next to his desk. I pushed my chair a good 6 feet away from the chair Julie was sitting in and plopped into it. Gerald sighed. All right, then he began. I didn't hear anything else as I pulled out a set of air capsules, inserted them, and started listening to music from my phone. Gerald just stared at me, and then he started talking to Julie. I couldn't hear what he was saying. I just kept playing with my phone while listening to music. About 15 minutes later, I saw Julie get up. She glared at me and left the office. I took out my air capsules. Okay, doctor, good session. See you on Thursday. I'm canceling meetings and sending my report to the judge. Even better, the judge was unhappy. Can you give me at least one reason why I shouldn't hold your client in contempt of court? He growled at my lawyer. Your Honor, you ordered my client to attend the meetings. He attended the first meeting in accordance with the order. It was the consultant who had canceled the rest of the sessions. The consultant's report clearly states that he made no attempt to participate in the session. He put on his headphones and ignored everyone the whole time. You ordered him to be present, my lawyer replied. He was present. Given that the consultant felt that continuing consultations would not make sense, I would like to ask you to grant permission for a divorce in accordance with the petition. Not in this life. I'm setting up 4 weeks of consultations. Mr. Stedman will be present and he will participate. The office was set up in exactly the same format as the first time. 2 chairs about a foot apart stood in front of the table. The consultant sat down at an empty table, except for a yellow notebook and a photo of a pretty woman, in my opinion, about 35 years old, and a child who looked about 6 years old. Mr. Stedman, he said, please have a seat. I started moving the chair again. Julie reached out to stop me, and I jumped back. I'm notifying you both that any physical contact will be interpreted as an attack on my person and an appropriate response will be given to it. I said. Julie gasped, pulling away. I went back to pulling up a chair and then sat down in it. I took out my phone again. Mr. Stedman, the judge ordered you to take part in the meeting. I know I use my phone to record the session to prove my participation. My lawyer says that it is known that some consultants have their own plans. Since my future ex-wife has been dating you for some time, I feel that you may already have a relationship with her that could work against me. And if I object to recording sessions, the consultant asked, then I'll go back to court and ask for another consultant. There is also such an option. The only reason I haven't done this yet is because it will cause even more delays. Julie, how do you feel about recording sessions? He looked at her. It doesn't matter, she said, waving her hand. Can we just get started? All right then, Gerald said. What I would like to do first, before we start, I interrupted. May I ask you a question? Of course, he said. You can ask questions at any time. I can ask you to refrain from asking questions at certain points in the process, but ask right now. He smiled at me encouragingly. Have you already made love? Julie gasped, but Gerald didn't seem bothered. No, Julie and I have not had and will not have any contact, he said softly. It would be inappropriate even if I wasn't already very happily married. Is this the answer to the question? I nodded. I believed him. He must have been one of the few men Julie had met in the last year. Then, as I said before, what I would like to do first is to set our expectations. Since I have already spoken to Julie several times, I would like her to outline what she would like to achieve in these sessions and what her desired outcome would be. I would ask you to refrain from comments and questions until the end as soon as Julie tells us what she hopes to achieve, I'll ask you to do the same. I refrained from commenting. I wasn't looking at Julie when she started talking. First of all, Brian, she began. Don't talk to me, I growled. Talk to me, Julie, Gerald said. Tell me what you'd like to hear from Mr. Stedman. I wanted him to hear how sorry I was for hurting him. I know I did the wrong thing. It's just that he spent so much time at work on his business trips, and I was lonely. I understand how much I hurt him, and if I could go back and change the past, I would give anything to do it. I love him more than anything in the world. I know we can get through this. If he would just give me a chance, I would show him that I can be the best wife a man can dream of. We could raise our child together and give him a wonderful life, maybe even a brother or sister. I want us to be together. I know we can do this. We can get through this. I know we can. Gerald smiled at Julie. Okay, thank you, Julie. Now you, Mr. Stedman, what would you like to say? I glared at him. Julie burst into tears and ran out of the room. It didn't help, Gerald said. I don't want to help you. This fool has been fornicating with half the men in the city for a whole year. Got pregnant and tried to pass the child off his mind. If I hadn't already suspected something was wrong and asked for a DNA test, I would even now have to pay alimony for some bastard. Tell me, Doc, how exactly am I supposed? Your anger is natural, but you need to look through the anger at what you had. Do you really know what the hell you're talking about? I snapped. Have you ever had the love of your life? The person to whom you trusted your heart and soul, and for whom you were literally ready to die, and this person shat on you so much that you doubt your own sanity? When I found out what was going on, I wanted to die. I was seriously thinking about killing myself. How can someone who claims to love someone hurt them so much? You also noticed that she never once said she was sorry for what she had done, for making love to all these men, for all the lies over and over again, for getting knocked up and not even being able to guess who the fucking father of the child was. The only thing you can be sure of is that it wasn't me, not the person who was supposed to give her a baby. So since you have no idea what it's like to be in my position, don't sit there with your sanctimonious fucking smile and your bookish knowledge and tell me that I should forget about my anger. Right now, my anger is all I have. Just let me get this cheating fool out of my life and try to rebuild something from the pieces she left me. I hope this counts as participation. I growled at him as I left the office. When I got home, I decided to prepare a little for the next session. Maybe I could prove my point. I asked Julie to let us do this session. Without her, Gerald said when I walked into his office the following week, I feel that for a start, we can achieve more on an individual basis. As long as it's still considered court-ordered counseling, I'm more than happy that I don't have to be in the same room with that fool. I sat down, placing the A4 envelope I was holding in my hands on my lap. Can we try to refrain from name-calling? Please, it's not constructive and just gets in the way. I don't want to be constructive. I just want to go through these sessions and get this cheating fool out of my life forever. I never wanted these sessions. She's just determined to cause me as much suffering as possible. She doesn't want a divorce because the prenup leaves her with nothing. So she's trying to get me to take her back. That's not going to happen. What about the baby? He's innocent. Of course he should not be punished for. He's not my problem or my concern. In your opinion, I would have to take on board every street urchin who couldn't keep her legs closed and got knocked. These children have nothing to do with me, and neither does this child. Why are you so sure that there is only one outcome from this? You obviously loved her very much. All this feeling does not go away overnight. Your anger is masking it now, but once it settles down, and trust me, it will, you'll find that there are still feelings you can rely on, feelings you can use to rebuild your relationship, even make them stronger. That smile is back again. I wanted to hit him, It's time to give him a taste of his own medicine. I pointed to the photo on his desk. You have a good family. Have you been married long? We're not here to discuss mine. 11 years, my sources are correct. Childhood sweetheart got married right after graduating from college. I was waiting to have kids and then little Ethan showed up. How old is he now? 9. This photo must have been taken a couple of years ago. How did you? He began. But did you know that dear Cheryl has her own secrets? Do you happen to know that when she says she's in Pilates class on Wednesday afternoon while you're working, she's actually at the Motel 8 on Patterson, making love to her personal trainer? This is completely ridiculous, he stammered, but I could see that he wasn't sure. He turned very pale. Really? I said, pulling some photos out of the envelope. I put them on his desk one by one. They showed a pretty, slender woman entering a hotel room with a young, muscular man. He had his arm around her waist, and they looked at each other lovingly. I pulled out the DVD and put it on his desk, too. There is also a video recording from inside the room if you need real evidence of what they're doing. It's pretty graphic, so if I were you, I wouldn't watch it. I made this mistake when I received the private investigator's report. These images will haunt me for the rest of my life. He looked like he was about to throw up. Oh, and one more thing. Ethan. No, he said softly. Please God, you know, I pulled the DNA report out of the envelope. It seems that the fitness instructor is not the first one. I think he'd be too young to be Ethan's father, but whoever the father is, it's not you, I said quietly. He got up and ran into what I assumed was the bathroom next to his office. I heard him vomit noisily into the toilet. Do you understand now? I asked him as he sank back into his chair. Tears were streaming down his face. He looked at me with dead eyes. Now you see the pain she caused me, and why should I take her out of my life? He nodded weakly. Good. Now there's one more thing you need to know. He looked at me with fear. Is there anything else? What is it? He asked plaintively. It's all fake. Nothing that I have just shown is true. As far as I know, your wife is as loving and loyal as you think she is, and Ethan is your son. But the photo? Photoshop. It's amazing what can be done with a few Facebook posts and a little time and effort. I replied gloomily. If you ask someone who is even remotely competent to examine the photos, they would tell you that they are all fakes. I took out some more photos from the envelope, but to prove it, these are the originals from which I made them. His face started to turn red, and I wondered if he was going to attack me. And the DVD? What is it? He asked. An empty disc. The DNA report? Actually, this is a DNA report on the child of my future ex-cheater. I just changed the names and dates. He sat stunned for several minutes, fresh tears streaming down his face. Why would you do that? What could you achieve by destroying my marriage and my life? This was not my intention. That's why I told you almost immediately that it was all fake. I never wanted you or your family to be irreparably harmed. I just wanted you to really understand, for once, the pain I went through, the feelings of loss, anger, and resentment. You only had it for a few minutes. I'm still experiencing it. Your short-term suffering is my life now and in the future, making me sit here with this fool, listening to her spout her shit about how she loves me and wants me back. Just means I have to keep going through the pain over and over again. There are laws on cruel and unusual punishments. Why don't they apply in this case? I just want to move on, try to collect what little I have left, and get on with my life. Why can't you and the courts let me do this? I gathered all the papers from the table and put them back in the envelope. Actually, I'm sorry that I had to do this, but I needed you to understand I left his office. Your Honor, I have a report on a court-sanctioned consultation that my client was instructed to attend. My lawyer turned to the judge again. I have a copy, the judge growled. It seems that the consultant feels, even after only 3 sessions out of 8, that this marriage cannot be saved, and that for the well-being of all concerned, including the child, the best solution would be to allow its dissolution. Yes, Your Honor, I ask you to order the dissolution of the marriage in accordance with the petition. The judge looked at me for a long time. I stared straight ahead, not wanting to meet his eyes. I claim it, he finally said, banging the hammer.